Hi, this is Rabbi Orlofsky. Welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching on YouTube or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, we are so happy to have you along for this episode 50. Yeah, Zooks, 50 of these things already. Hard to believe. And that's 25 hours of almost Torah content. I hope you appreciate that. Yeah. So we're in the summertime. Summertime. Thank you very much. And this is Ben Azmanim. And it's, of course, the summertime. Yeah. Now, there's an expression that the Jewish holidays are either early or late, but they're never on time. Yeah. Rosh Hashanah is early this year, Rosh Hashanah is late this year, but never comes out on time. Well, I have to say that as close as possible, it comes out on time this year. Because Rosh Chodesh Elul is September 1st. Mamish, we are as lined up as one could hope for it to be. Yeah? We start the school year, we start Elul. There are some years where Rosh Hashanah comes out right at the beginning. Schools don't even have time to be able to teach anything. They go, boom, right into the Yom Tovim. Now you have a month to get ready, prepare yourself for the Yom Tovim. When the schools start with the ideal. But the past few years, it's, we've had Rosh Chodesh Elul on like August 8th. And I remember I was in America, I was speaking, and I said, how could you have Elul at the beginning of August? This is when you're supposed to be doing the Averas that you have to do tshuva for on Elul. It just completely bums it out, and especially when I was a kid and I went to summer camps. I was a terrible camper, yeah. Camp is made for those people who the Spartans, would leave on top of mountaintops to die of exposure if they couldn't maintain enough, swimming, baseball, all the different kind of sports things. There was this standard. Not all skills were admired in the camp setting. I myself did not happen to be particularly sports oriented. In fact, they made a special position for me called deep center field. And by the time I walked out to the position, often the inning was over, and I would walk back. They would let me know when the inning was over with semaphore flags. You know what I mean? And for me, it was fine. I would go out there and I'd read a book. And it was one time, somebody must have been a great hitter, the ball came out to me. I heard the shouting in the distance. I look over, and sure enough, there's the ball. And I picked it up with all my strength, and I threw it. And I walked a couple of steps, and I picked it up, and I threw it again. And, I kept doing this for a while. Eventually, somebody came out and, took the ball and told us to go to bed. But I wasn't a sports guy. To this day, I'm embarrassed to admit it. But I never learned how to swim. Now, don't get me wrong. I know how to swim. I know how to go through all the motions. I never figured out how to turn my head, take a breath, and put my head back in the water. And everyone knows this is how you're supposed to swim. This is the crawl. Yeah. And I would go, and I couldn't get any air. So I just did this until I ran out of breath, and then I would sink to the bottom. But I could do the backstroke. I could do the side stroke. But the crawl, which is the required one, one of those tough guys who would go for their junior life saving certificate or their senior life saving certificate. You see them in the pool, dragging someone who couldn't swim like back to shore. That was usually me. I was the body. But it's an amazing thing. And especially when I went to camp, it was 2 months, it was July and August, And by the end of August, it gets pretty cold up in the Catskill Mountains, So the first period every day was swim instruction. And, the counselors would come out wearing sweatsuits, sometimes with a parka over it, you know what I mean? Ski hat, And we're all there in our little bathing suits. And they say, jump in the water. wait, let me get the ice pick first. This was not for me. I I needed more of a cerebral experience. And I just, these kind of things happen. And that's why when they would choose up the teams, I wasn't always the last one chosen, because sometimes neither team would take me under any circumstances. But usually there was negotiations, like in Monopoly. We'll take Orlofsky, but then you have to give us an amazing thing. And so what they would do at the end of the year is they would have color war, where they would take the entire camp and divide it into two groups. The idea being that this way we can pit friend against friend, brother against brother, and see if we can do as much destructiveness in the lives of children as is possible. And since the points are being given out mostly for your athletic prowess, which I did not excel in, well, you have to have the song, you'd have to practice the song. Most of the time, they didn't care if you know how to sing. You just had to be able to stand up together. Everybody had to stand up and sit on the edge of your seat, and you had to stand up without scraping your chair. That was the major accomplishment. If you could do that, then you were already successful at choir, And it was absolutely amazing. People would have to get through these 3 days. It was very difficult going, for someone like me, a quiet and shy, non-athletic, cerebral young man, sensitive and emotional, getting beaten up constantly by vicious people in the name of unity. Now, the best part about color war is that first color war has to have a breakout. This is required by law. You have to have a breakout, and the breakout is designed in such a way as to make it as frightening and traumatic for the children as possible. The more that this will scar the children for life, the better it is, So one year, I don't know, the head counselor got into some kind of a fight with the cook, and then he was talking, and the cook ran out with a hatchet, started chasing him around the dining. I still have trouble catching my breath when I remember that scene, all kinds of terrible things. Anyway, so I had a friend who was a real camper. The people who mamish live for camp, And and I asked him what was the best color war breakout, and what was the worst color war breakout that he ever had, because he was often one of the generals, and and you had to have the color war breakout. This is very important. So here's the worst color war breakout. It didn't work well, which I think is good, because if it had worked properly, I think people would have been prosecuted and sent away for years. Here was the idea. They were going to wake the children up in the middle of the night by telling them that the camp was on fire. These are responsible adults running this. They had actually bought smoke bombs. They would be released inside of the bunks, and then they would wake up the little children and scream, "Fire!" Fire. So that in their pajamas, they would all rush out to the baseball field, tired and supposedly, I imagine, crying and traumatized, thinking that their camp and all their belongings and possibly some of their friends were burning down. And then the fire chief was going to land in a helicopter, and they would get out, and it would be the color war generals. This was the plan. What they did not take into account, which is so often the case when people are planning fake fires, those of you at home who are budding arsonists should bear this in mind, is they did not take into account the wind. So it was windy that night, and they set off the smoke bombs, and all the smoke blew away. So they woke up all the children, they said, "Fire, fire." And they said, "Where's there fire?" "No, there's a fire, there's a fire." And they drag all the children to the baseball field, which was covered with smoke. Because all of the smoke, through some poor planning, flew and was just hovering over the baseball field, such that the helicopter couldn't land. So instead, they drove in a car, jumped out, and screamed "Color War." And Baruch Hashem, there was no prosecution. One can only imagine if it had been successful. Yeah. So he said, what was the best color war? Best color war was that there was some sort of fight between the head counselor and the camp director, I think, and there was a whole big fight and a whole big scene that went on, etc. And sure enough, they had screamed out color war, they set off sparklers, whatever it was, and they threw out all the things. Okay, didn't sound so impressive to me. They set up the teams and invited everybody up, and they had a whole day of sports teams and competitions, and everything counts. Yeah. I can't speak for all camps, but in my camp, you got points for davening, so, the counselor had to decide whether or not you were davening with kavanah, an extra 5 points for your team, like everything. What happens in the meals, clean up, everything was, we used to have line up, you have to line up and form a picture, everything was being gecheshbend into the points. Anyway, the first night was the skit. So, blue team, white team, whichever team it is gets up and starts their skit, and the other team stands up and starts screaming, "You stole our skit." And they said, "No, we didn't." And they show their script. It's kimat, the same script. There's a little bit of change. It's kimat, the same script. "You stole our play." And they said, "No, we didn't." Just luck. Just blind luck that we both came up with the same topic and same basic outline. It happens. This kid goes to school and the teacher says to write an essay about your pet. So this kid hands in an essay about his cat. So the teacher calls him over and says, this is the same exact essay that your older brother handed in last year. And the kid says, "It's the same cat." That's just a coincidence that the two plays were the same. Anyway, the other team was fuming. What are you going to do? You can't get up and give the same play. So they quickly put together a play about how the other team stole their script. And they were just attacking them. And the other team got angry and they got up and started screaming at them. And there was a whole fight. And the director got up and did the only responsible thing. This is the only part of all of these stories that actually have meaning to me. He says, this was in Camp Torah V'das. This is Camp Torah V'das? This is the way we're behaving? This is the sinner? That's it. No color war this year. Color war is canceled. And I was like, yeah, but, that's it. I never got this kind of twisted logic, but the whole purpose of color war is to create achdus. Yes, in 1984, George Orwell referred to this as doublespeak, and war is peace, and slavery is freedom, and etc. But it's great achdus. He says this is terrible. No more color war. Okay, kids were very disappointed, and that was it. They went back to their bunks to find. Next morning was a regular day of camp, regular activities, and everybody was very upset. You can imagine they were upset. I think they were upset on two levels. I think on one sense they were upset that they missed out on color war, and I think on another level, I don't know that the color war experience necessarily brings out the best in everybody. And I think perhaps there was enough introspection on the part of the campers and the staff to say that maybe we got carried away with the thrill of wanting to win, wanting to be successful, that we let it get the better of ourselves. Okay. They had supper, and the night activity was going to be a movie. I show a movie. Now, throughout the year, they have different Rosh Yeshiva who come to speak, and this one Rosh Yeshiva came to speak. It was davening Ma'ariv. And they finished Ma'ariv, and the Rosh Yeshiva is still davening. So, okay. That's part of the requirements of being a Rosh Yeshiva. You have to keep going, yeah? And but they had to start the night activity, so they start setting up the movie. They start this, that, and the kid who's davening for the Amid is waiting, and the Rosh Yeshiva is still davening Shemona Esrei. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The entire camp of these kids are sitting there. You have any idea what that's like? I went for 2 nights in a row here in Yerushalayim to a cheder, were my two grandchildren. One was getting their Chumash and getting their Chumash party, and the other one, they finished Bereshis, and they were making a siyum on Bereshis. And it's the same thing. These kids all sit on the big dais, and we're dealing either with 5-year-olds or 7-year-olds, and they're all sitting on the dais, and the parents and grandparents in the audience, and everybody needs to speak. And they need to speak. This is so important to them. And some representative of the parents speak, a representative of the grandparents speak, and a representative of the Vada Horim speak, and the principal speaks, the assistant principal speaks, and the Mefakeach, and the donors, and important people from the neighborhood. Do you know what these little kids are doing? They're climbing over each other. They're knocking things over there. They're going out of their mind. So they finally figured it out after all these years. They just keep handing the kids food. They keep handing them food, drinks, The kids are having a party. And these people are talking. The kids aren't listening. The parents aren't listening. Nobody's listening. Trust me, I'm a speaker. I do this for a living, And I'm thinking to myself, what are these people doing? Don't you realize you're not talking to anybody? And the answer is, in the words of Dale Carnegie, people are fascinated by the sound of their own voice. Yeah. So here you got 20 kids. It's a half an hour after everybody finished Ma'ariv, and this Rosh Yeshiva is still davening. So they finally feel like they have no choice, and they tell the boy to say Kaddish. They say Kaddish, they say Aleinu, They finish, and shortly after that, the Rosh Yeshiva finishes. And he is livid. He's livid. He says, "You can't wait for a shiva who comes to Camp Torah Vadas? This is what it's become? For vos? For the mothers? For the mothers? For this? You can't wait for a Rosh Yeshiva to finish being out in Ma'ariv?" And he was really getting angry, and the children were very embarrassed. And the camp director comes over and tries to calm him down, and he gets upset. And finally, the Rosh Yeshiva grabs the director and starts strangling him. So the director punches him, rips off his beard, and screams, "Color war." The whole thing was phony. The whole first day was all phony color war, just to set everybody up for this incredible disappointment. Now, let's learn from this the important chinuch lessons from this unbelievable color war breakout. First of all, we learned sinna, and we learned to hate and take vengeance, and then we learned to make fun of Rosh Yeshiva, and then we learned, that we don't wait for Rosh Yeshiva. The chinuch opportunity in this story is just absolutely. Ay. But sometimes. We get carried away. We get carried away with the experience. And what can I tell you? I went to Camp Sdei Chemed for 2 years as a kid. That was a completely different experience. There you go to Israel. Most of the time you're touring, and then you have some camp days. But nobody took the camp days seriously. It was like, you gotta yell at somebody because they didn't go to baseball. We were in we were Rishon LeZion. The temperature was 95, the humidity was 110, water was dripping on you. It was just unbelievable. So when anybody finally got around doing anything, they just jumped in the pool and sat in the pool all day. You didn't wait for your bunk. And you just, you managed as best as you could. Yeah. So that was a different kind of experience. Yeah. And so you try to have the trappings of a camp, but it wasn't that kind of a camp. But I went for a couple of years to real sleepaway camps, and what can I tell you? The skills that make you successful in camp are not the skills that I've been able to. Now, to be fair, we always did a production. We put on a play. Yeah, I didn't go to the frommest camps, so we did Broadway plays. I was Fagin and Oliver. Typecasting. I had some different roles and things like that I was able to be good at, but all the sports things and the intensity of it, So everything's changed. Now people go for a few weeks here, a few weeks there. Now it's the first session, second session, the third session. I don't know, all kinds of different things. The nature of the experience has changed. When I went, obviously you had these old mattresses that had been left over from like the pioneers when they first went up into the mountains in the 1700s. Had these cabins. Used to leak a little bit when it rained, not much, but a little bit. And I have never since played rafterball. It was one of the great things that we used to do. You used to take a softball and throw it in the air, and it had to bounce on the rafter. And how many times it bounced, that's whether you got a double or a triple. That was great when it was raining, And people used to keep their drinks in the toilet tank, keep it cool, and you're not allowed to bring any food or drink to camp. Everyone knows this. Nobody keeps it. Except the first time I went to camp, my father saw the rule. So he asked the director, is it okay, if I brought my kids some sodas? And he goes, oh, no, they can't have it. Tell them to keep it in the office. And so if you wanted, we wanted a soda, me and my brothers, we had to go to the director. He had to signify like one or two, and he'd call you into his office and he'd shut the door and he'd lower the blinds and he'd open his bottom drawer and take out one or two sodas, put it in a brown paper bag, give it to you, say, if anyone asks, say you're throwing out garbage for me. Today, forget about it. Food packages, trunks galore, food. That's besides the canteen, besides everything that goes on, But when I was there, it was now people tell me you have bunks there, much fancier, and they're air conditioned, and they have all kinds of amazing things. Hashem, it's really roughing it. No, I have no problem with this. My idea of roughing it is sleeping with only 2 pillows. So the idea of going off into a bunk with living in a cabin with wildlife, like why would I do this? Yep. After rain, see all the salamanders running around. That was very exciting, And so okay. So it's all part of the camp experience. It's all part of what summer is. And there's something about summer that's it's just off. It's just off. It's supposed to be off. Now, this Bein Hazmanim, I always felt is different because I'll tell you what makes this Bein Hazmanim dramatically different. Bein Hazmanim in Tishrei and Bein Hazmanim in Nisan, we don't say Tachnan. This Bein Hazmanim we do say Tachnan. It's a Bein Hazmanim with Tachnan. It's a slightly different thing. And I heard from Rabbi Orlofsky once, fascinating insight. We have the 3 weeks, from the 17th of Tammuz to Tisha B'Av. And for 3 weeks, we're spinning lower and lower and lower and lower until we hit rock bottom. And then from Tisha B'Av to Rosh Chodesh Elul, we have another 3 weeks. 3 weeks to sit on the floor and feel sorry for yourself. Okay. I've fallen to the ground and I can't get up. It's an ebuch. It's too bad. And that's really what this Bein Hazmanim is. The summertime is... the Maharal says that our Yemei Churban come out either in the summertime or in the wintertime because it's too much. The days are too long. It's too hot. Or in Asar B'Teves, the days are too short. It's too cold. But during the summertime, everything is too much. It's excess. The cuisine of choice is a barbecue. What is a barbecue? How do you know what to eat at a barbecue? They put out franks, and they put out hamburgers, and they put out steaks, and they put out chicken cutlets, and they put out wings, and then they put out potatoes and potato chips, and then salt. If you look in these magazines, so they have issue after issue of the barbecue, what you can barbecue, how you barbecue it, this sauce, that sauce. Does anybody eat what they need at a barbecue? Is there a USDA recommended amount of barbecue? No, everybody eats until they're sick. Until by the evening, they're just sweating fat. Fat. Oh, yeah. It's just too much. It's too much. People stay up all night. They don't go to sleep. There's no bedtimes. Everything's too much. Everything's to excess. It's not good for a Jew. Our Yom Tovim, says the Maharal, comes out in the equinox, Nisan and Tishrei. Half day, half night. Not too hot, not too cold. A balance. And the summer is extreme. It's just too much. So, I hope you're enjoying your vacation. I hope you're enjoying your barbecues. So, hope you're enjoying your vacations and all of the wonderful things that go with it. And Mitzvah Hashem next week, it's going to be Rosh Chodesh Elul. Mitzvah Hashem next week is going to be Rosh Chodesh Elul. We'll talk about how to. We had 3 weeks going down and 3 weeks sitting on the floor. Zelu Mazeh. And then there's 3 weeks from Rosh Hashanah till Shmini Atzeres. Yeah, till actually Hoshana Rabbah. Another 21 days. That contrast that and bring us back. One we go down, one we sit there, and one we go back up. These 3 week periods. So Mitzvah Hashem. We'll get through this summertime, hopefully relatively unscathed. Yeah, I have to get ready because, I have to start eating healthy. That's what the Yom Tovim are for. We know that through Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot, everyone makes sure it eats only the healthiest foods, whole grains and salads and all those good things. And Mitzvah Hashem we're entitled. We're entitled to have a little time to feel sorry for ourselves. That's what the summer really is. We feel sorry for ourselves. We're sitting on the ground. We fell down. Then comes a time when you got to brush yourself off and start all over again. That's it. Blow the shofar. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up, you sleepy heads. Get up. Get up, get out of bed. Time to start again. Time to rebuild, time to renew. But right now, enjoy your barbecues. Enjoy your nice quiet days and your trips and your late nights. And then in Mitzvah Hashem, since this year everything lines up, September 1st and Elul Mamash, just the way it should be. For my friends who are listening down in Australia and South Africa, I have no idea what to tell you. But Baruch Hashem. Oh, it's the equinox down there too, yeah. For my friends who are on Mars and Venus, I don't know what to tell you. Very hard. They once had a Jewish astronaut who went into space, but they were considering a frum guy, and he looked into it and he says, I can't do it. I can't go into a spaceship. He says, why? He goes, because every 25 seconds, chakras ben chamayr, chakras ben chamayr, chakras ben chamayr. They're orbiting the Earth, you see that? Anyway, okay, more jokes from outer space. But in any event, that's it for this week. And if you want to find out more about the show, please go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com, where you can make comments. And I tend to answer them. Sometimes it takes me a while, but I tend to answer them. I answered somebody an email not that long ago, and the person was surprised because he sent it to me about 7 years ago. But I got to it. Just sometimes it takes me a while, yeah. You can find my upcoming event schedule. You can contact me directly, and you can sponsor an episode. RabbiOrlofsky.com/podcast. Click on the sponsor an episode button. That's it. I'm David Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.